Hey everyone, Jason here from Rhino Tuff Tanks. Today we'll be installing a pump assembly to one of our stackable tanks. Now we offer several kit variations depending on the orientation of the pump setup, the type of pump, or the dispenser that's being used. So today we're installing the model RTT 1202. It's a side-mounted assembly that includes a 3-to-1 LD series piston pump from Graco, a 1/2 inch by 50-foot hose reel, and an electronic non-preset dispensing meter. So the tools and the components that will be required are listed in the description below. The first step is to attach the mounting plates and brackets. So we'll align the hose reel bracket with the side mount plate studs, and then using 1/2 inch nuts we'll attach to the 2 studs. Then that will secure the hose reel bracket to the side mount plate. With a 1/2 inch wrench, we'll tighten that. And now we'll take our plate assembly and attach it to the side of our tank. So we'll use a 5/16 bolt, lock washer, and flat washer, and attach to each of the 6 locations with the insert into the tank. Be sure to hand tighten all 6 locations first, and then we'll use a 1/2 inch wrench to secure everything in place. In this next step, we're going to be attaching the pump bracket onto the side mount plate. Depending on the orientation, you have to choose where you'll actually attach the bracket. In this case, we'll attach it on the bottommost position. So we'll be attaching this with 4 5/16 nuts and the lock washer. Use a 1/2 inch wrench to tighten them down. In this next step, we'll be using a 3/4 inch wrench and remove the stainless steel plug from the side bushing. We are now going to install our 1 inch male by female brass ball valve into the bushing. Like all wetted threaded connections, make sure to coat all of the threads with an approved sealant. In this case, we're using Teflon tape. So we'll get this hand tightened, and then we'll use a wrench to finish it into its final position. And now we'll install our stainless steel elbow into the female end of the brass ball valve. And we'll use a pipe wrench to finish that. So you want the elbow to be finishing in a 12 o'clock position so that it aligns directly with the pump, which we'll install next. So the Bung adapter will screw into the coupler on the bracket. So before we finish putting the pump into its final position, we have to remove these 4 10mm bolts and flip the air motor 180 degrees. So that will allow the air inlet side to be facing the left, facing on the left. So I need my 10mm wrench, and it's the outside 4 bolts that we're going to remove. Now be careful as you remove the air motor. There's a gasket on both top and bottom that you want to make sure that stays in place. And then we'll replace the 4 bolts. So the next step, we're going to install the air regulator and muffler into the back of the pump. So the muffler is a 3/8 inch thread. We'll just install that hand tight. No need for thread sealant on that. The next one is going to be a 1/4 inch opening. We'll use a 1/4 inch nipple. And that one we will want to put thread sealant on. Use a 9/16 wrench, just snug that in. Put our tape on the other side of the nipple. And now we'll attach the air regulator. There's an imprinted arrow on the regulator itself. That indicates the direction the air is going to flow. So we want to make sure that arrow is pointing towards the pump. And this regulator can just be hand tightened. At this point, you can orientate the pump facing outward and then tighten the thumb screws to keep that in a secured place. The next step, we're going to be installing our 1-inch adapter into the pump. We'll get it hand tightened at first, and then we'll finish it with a pipe wrench. Now the next step, we're going to be installing our vacuum hose, connecting the pump to the inlet elbow. So you can either take a tape measure and measure your length. In this case, we're going to need a length approximately 13 inches long. The other option is to take one end, work it on, and then mark the hose, and then with a hose cutter, cut it enough. Now this hose has got a wire helix so that it does not collapse under vacuum. And so we'll want to use a snip to cut the end, removing any sharp edges. Now before we slide the hose over the barb end, we want to make sure we slip the hose clamps over the top, and then work that end in. And we'll take and tighten the hose clamps. So at this point, we're now going to attach the hose reel onto the system. So the first thing we'll do is set it into place and align the holes on the base of the hose reel with the holes on the hose reel bracket. At that point, we'll take our 3/8 inch bolts, nut, and washers and secure the reel to the plate. And then we'll tighten this down with a 9/16 wrench. So once the bolts are tightened, we'll need to adjust the arm from an upright to a 90-degree position. In order to do that, it's best to use a 1/2 inch socket, and we will loosen the 4 bolts holding the arm in place. Now, once you get to this last bolt, it's important to hold the hose reel in place because it's spring loaded. So if you don't, the spring will force the mechanism to start spinning and you'll have a mess. So with your left hand, hold the reel in place, even give it a little pull to give it some slack, and then loosen that last nut. So then you'll remove and then rotate to the 90-degree, and then replace the nuts. Release the hose reel. Pull the end of the nozzle out and let it sit in its rested position. So in this next step, we're going to be attaching the hose that connects the pump to the hose reel. So with that, we're going to start with the fittings. The one that connects to the pump is a male by female with a hydraulic swivel. Take a channel lock, remove the plug, add our Teflon tape. You need to adjust the thumb screw to give yourself some clearance. Okay, once it's hand tight, you can leave it in that position at the moment. And then we're going to attach the female by female elbow to the hose reel. So we'll remove the little plastic tab. Then on this one, we'll put the thread tape on the hose reel. So on this connection, we'll want to make sure to use the swivel end to connect to the hose reel. You can use an adjustable wrench to tighten that down, and we'll want that finishing in the 6 o'clock position. We'll take our 1/2 inch by 2 foot long hose. One end has a swivel and one end is fixed. So we'll take our swivel end and insert it into the female side of the elbow. We'll want to bring this elbow down to a 5 o'clock position. And then we'll connect the other side. Finish that into position. So the next step, we're going to be attaching the dispensing meter to the hose reel. So the first step We'll coat our threads with tape. So we'll remove the plug and then attach the hose. The nozzle has got a swivel on the end of it. So hand tighten that. And we'll finish it with a wrench. And we can retract it back. Now it's important to make sure that your tank is allowed to breathe while it's being filled or you're dispensing. And so the last step, we're going to be installing a desiccant air breather. This will allow the tank again to breathe as air is going in and coming out. This is a two-part filter. One, it filters the particulates from the air, and two, the blue beads are actually a desiccant and it absorbs moisture from in the air. So with that, we'll install this breather. Remove the plug, and we'll install the male by female adapter. Want to finish at an upright position. The breather itself has a plug which you'll want to remove, and also remove there are 8 plugs, and that opens the breather itself. So once those are removed, simply screw in until the O-ring makes contact and the system is finished. So now that the assembly is complete, double check your connections, connect your air to the air regulator, and make sure your inlet valve is open. At this point, you're ready to start working. For more information, check out our website, www.rhinotoughtanks.com.